You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold, episode 27. Very excited to be here, especially today with our guest. We welcome in from Colorado, attorney Christine Hahn. How are you?
Good. How are you, Benny? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Finally, we get to do this. I know we featured you back March 31st, 2020. Very interesting story. I want to dive into that. How are you doing in this crazy world? It's wild out there, huh?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's a crazy world, but I'm doing good. I hope you are too.
That's good. Thank you. Yeah, it's nice to talk to somebody without a mask on. I feel like everywhere I go now, it's like, you have to wear a mask and it's kind of wild. So thanks for being here with us. So we'll dive right in. We did do your story, your lawyer story on Instagram and Facebook. That's lawyer_stories on Instagram, and on March 31st, 2020. So you have, like I said, you have a super interesting story. Your parents are first generation Korean Americans. They moved to Philly. Is that correct? So, and then so I want you to talk about that, but I want you to talk about like the first trip you took to New York when you were 6. Because you said you love the Statue of Liberty, and that's something I actually really love. I was there a few years ago, and when my wife was pregnant, and it was amazing. I had wanted to go back for so long, and I just find that such a great piece, a great part of American history. So tell me your background with that, your parents being over here, Philly, and then your New York trip.
Yeah, sure. So my parents immigrated to the United States in the 1980s. So I was born in Philadelphia. So I was really there during my younger years. So, New York is really close from Philly. So my parents would often take me there to, just hang out and see friends and family. And I still remember, when I was a little girl and I saw the Statue of Liberty, my dad, he always wanted to be an attorney. That was his dream. And he would tell me, Christine, we're in America now, and look at that. What does that resemble? And he would teach me what, this is the land of many opportunities, and so many people here trying to live the American dream. So I first-handedly saw my parents live that too. My mom was a registered nurse. Okay. My dad was serving in the U.S. military.
Wow.
Yeah, he was the first Asian American police officer in Philadelphia PD. So
right. So I want to get there about the police department, but when did they come over to?
In the 1980s.
Okay. So how old were they, and what brought them to Philly? Do you know?
Yeah. So my parents were 24 and 25 years old at the time. And my dad had his uncle. Oh, no, my uncle. So my dad had his brother and sisters already who immigrated to Philadelphia.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So my aunt was also a registered nurse.
Okay.
So she immigrated here. Back in the day, they had a shortage of healthcare workers, including nurses. So a lot of foreign nationals from the Asian countries would get the visa and come and immigrate to the United States at that time. So once they were situated here, they did a family-based petition, and then my dad and my mom came to Philadelphia, where I was born.
Did you start to understand the immigration piece better as you studied it? We're going to get into what you're doing now later, but do you look back and understand sort of what they had to do now that that's a big part of your practice is immigration?
Oh yeah, I knew it even before I started practicing immigration law. My parents struggled to get a green card and become a U.S. citizen, and I was young, but I knew what was going on. And, I was born in Philadelphia, but English was my second language. So ESL, I was in ESL until second grade. So I'm fully bilingual. I'm Korean. I read and write. So, although I was born in Philadelphia, I was raised in a very traditional way. my folks only spoke Korean. I went to Korean kindergarten and preschool. So, again, I was in ESL until second grade. So a lot of my family members and the community members, I've seen them not only struggle with the system and immigration, but, family matters, criminal matters. So I
Right.
always knew as a child that life was somewhat different for immigrants
Right.
in the United States.
So is a big portion of your clientele, like, or some of it, Korean based?
A large portion is, but I also have just a wide variety of, immigrant clients. So I have a really big portion of Latinos,
Yep.
Hispanics,
That's good.
same with Asian Americans, and not just Korean, really Vietnamese, Japanese, Cambodian, and the list goes on. So.
Wow. So, and you said your dad, when he came over, so your mom's a nurse, your dad came over, I kind of stopped you when you said he was a policeman. So like, what did he have to go through to get on the police force in Philly?
So my dad was in the U.S. military first. So he was in the Army, and he went because he wanted to pursue his education. Mind you, both my parents are college grads from
Okay.
South Korea. Yeah. So my dad redid everything when he got to the United States. And he couldn't afford to go to college, so he enlisted and they paid for his tuition. So after he graduated and after he was out of the military, he became a police officer in Philadelphia PD, the first Asian American one. So.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
So bringing that forward to today and sort of some current news, current events, like how do you feel about the whole defund police and this and that? Like, if you don't want to share that opinion on the podcast, that's fine on the internet. But is that something that sort of hits home for like your family and you? And
Benny, you didn't give me a heads up. We're talking about all of this today.
no, I know we don't have to even go there, but it's just sort of relating it into the current events. So.
Yeah. Without really just stating, being too political about it,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm an immigration attorney. At the end of the day, I'm a second generation Korean American. I've seen my parents struggle, to maneuver the system in the United States. At the end of the day, I did as well, but my dad also served as a police officer.
Yeah.
But my dad really played a huge role in my life when it comes to my career and my business. A huge inspiration comes from my father. So, he wasn't the typical police officer. He was
Right.
still struggling to speak English fluently, mind you. And he was the first Asian American police officer in Philadelphia. And he would see a lot of minorities in particular being treated unfairly. And he had different assignments. And, he would share those stories to me after work. So at a young age, I didn't know how serious it was, but I had an idea that, there's various complex issues when it comes to the police and different urban communities and minorities and such. So.
Okay, so we'll pivot away from that. Thanks for taking that head on. So going back to this visit to New York City when you were in Philly, you moved over when you were 6, like you took a trip to New York. Or actually, you weren't 6 when you moved over. You just went to New York when you were 6.
Yeah, it was a trip. It was like a weekend.
It was a trip. So one thing I like to know, because this is Laura's stories, and I think you might have already told us, but when was that moment when you were like, I'm going to be a lawyer?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember, like, did you have that moment?
I never had an aha moment.
Okay.
I always knew I was going to be an attorney. I always knew I wanted to be an attorney, and I always knew I was going to be good at it. It's funny because I watched Law and Order growing up. Who didn't, right? But I was really into books. Reading and writing has always been my thing. I've been a great speaker, and my dad, again, it was his dream that he never accomplished. So watching me have these analytical skills and, things like that, he would tell me, you'll be a great lawyer. Oh, my daughter's going to be a great lawyer. And it kind of just like, I think I got brainwashed or something like that. So, and then it became really natural, after college, that's what happened. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to talk about college too. So like you went to college out in Colorado, but you went there you were living in Philly and then you went to Colorado. Is that what happened?
No. So basically, because I was an Army brat for a long time, my dad was in the U.S. military. Our family, we traveled and lived in a lot of different places and continents, basically. I went to 3 different high schools, mind you. I used to live in South Korea for a couple of years in my high school, and then I came to Colorado. So Philadelphia is where I was born and raised as a child.
So you went to, okay, so take me through that. You went back to South Korea and you were in high school there for 2 years?
Yes.
Wow.
Actually, I went to school in South Korea for 4 years.
Wow.
That's actually how I perfected my Korean. Again, I'm completely bilingual. I read and write. I actually write my own immigration and family law column in the newspaper here and things like that. But I went to an international school there. So it was a, American school, but still I was in Korea. My parents had a business there. And then I moved back to Denver and I finished my high school and I went to University of Colorado here. So.
Okay. So they were out there with you and then you went back and then sort of forth.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I wasn't really raised by my parents. I was raised by my brother in Colorado. Okay. Yeah. So and he was going to CU Boulder here, and I was just in high school. I never did anything in the traditional way. I've always been really independent. Speaking about high school, I never actually graduated high school because I skipped senior year. I had good grades, and after 11th grade, I was kind of like too cool for school, and I applied to CU Boulder. I had a full ride scholarship, and I never actually went to my senior year in high school.
Really? So like, what were you like hanging out in the parking lot in a car or something?
No, so after 11th grade, I went to college. So
okay. Wow. So that, and they let you do that. They were just like, go to college.
Yeah, I had a really good GPA, and my dad, we can talk about this later. He had a SAT prep academy. So
okay, I saw that. Yeah. Okay.
SAT scores were really good. So I was 18 already, and I was like, I don't want to do senior year. I
just want to go to college. Let's move on. Right.
Yeah.
So you didn't take any time between going to college and then you went back to Detroit for law school, right? So like, did you take any time off between college and law school or no?
I did. I took 1 year off.
What'd you do?
So I did some soul searching. I wanted to see if, is this right for me? Do I really want to be a lawyer?
Yep.
Do I really want to go to law school, or is this more like my dad's dream or something? And so I took some time off.
I took a year off too. I took 1 year.
Yeah. I think it's good for people, to realize.
Yeah. I mean, I can write a lot about this, but I agree with you. I mean, I think like there's this thing in your mind that you have to go right to it, when I think a lot of kids and students benefit from knowing the value of time.
Yeah.
So I think if you have a job or if you're doing something for a year, I think it really can help. So anyway, you took the year off and then you were like, okay, Detroit Mercy. Yeah. How did that happen?
So I took a year off. I traveled, and I tried to see what I was good at. I've always been a good speaker. So I was in dental sales, dental equipment sales. So I was working for a big dental company in Longmont, Colorado. And I've always been like a tutor, SAT, ACT, test prep, GED, TOEFL, that kind of thing. So tutoring was always my thing. So I took a year off, and I was like, I probably should, go to law school and finish this dream of mine. So I knew that I needed to leave Colorado to be successful at what I wanted to do. I knew that.
Why?
I knew that for me, at the time, I needed to eliminate all distractions. Okay. So my friends and family are here. This is really where I consider my home. And just the fear of law school, I knew I wanted to go out of state where I don't know anyone, and I just study, get it done, and come back.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's great. Yep.
And on top of that, Detroit Mercy was a good choice for me. I applied and got accepted to a lot of places, but I wanted a very private setting.
So can I just back? I'm sorry, I don't mean to so private setting, but let's go back for a second. So you took that year off, you were doing dental sales. Did you know you were just going to stop after a year, or were you getting pulled in by some sort of decent paycheck, or did you have it in your head at the beginning that you were gone after a year? I'm just curious before we.
I always told myself no more than a year.
Okay.
So I honestly, it was more like, do I go to law school? Or go to grad school, right? And my major was international studies, political science, that kind of thing. I've kind of considered becoming a professor, because I was teaching most of my life.
You still can.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, an adjunct teaching legal studies.
Yeah. So that was something I was considering.
All right. So then you get to law school, and then I didn't mean to cut you off, so you can.
No, you're totally fine.
Yep.
Oh yeah, so I picked Detroit Mercy because it is a very private school and it's a Catholic school,
Okay.
and that's kind of the vibe that I wanted. And I
Okay.
just know how I learn. I know where I can excel, and I just know myself. So
So that's kind of like, I don't want to say it's random, but I mean it's kind of, you lived in Philly. There's probably a couple schools in Philly, like Detroit. Like, wait, so like, why did I mean? You just decided that you wanted to go out there because it was like little Catholic element to it, and like you would have been like,
yeah, I did some research. It's actually one of the oldest law schools here in the United States. It's like over 100 years, and Michigan was always appealing to me
yeah,
for some reason. I
people are
was.
nice in Michigan. That's why they're
You
freaking
think
nice.
so?
Excuse
People
me,
are nice in Denver.
maybe not like at the law school. I don't know, but yeah, Denver. I've never even been out there. But okay, so
Yeah. So I
that's
checked it out.
awesome. What's that?
So I checked it out and I did my research and I asked questions. They were so nice and welcoming. And again, I really wanted to go far away from home. And to me, home, because I've lived all over the place,
Yeah.
home is Denver, home is also Philly, home
Yep.
is also South Korea. And I didn't want any distractions.
That's
And,
great. Yep.
yeah.
So, what was your law school experience like when you got there? Your first year, you're in there, you're meeting a few people, you sort of have your head down, you're grinding. Like, what was it like for you?
Yeah, law school was, I mean, I'm sure all the 1Ls will say the same thing. Law school was a struggle the first year. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life,
Really? Okay.
probably.
All right.
Yeah, and I think, being bilingual, your brain works in two different ways. I speak and write a little differently. The way I think is a little different. And so processing that, the pressure of being, in law school, making it, where they drop the bottom 10% or 20, whatever it is, right? Yeah, it was hard. And, being in
Look
a
to your
different,
left, look to your right. Yeah.
right. And but they teach you to think like a lawyer, right? So that part was very hard for me, like any other 1L student. But after the first year, I got used to everything. I actually had a lot of fun during law school. I wasn't like a gunner or anything. I had good grades. I mean, I had book awards, several booked classes, but I wasn't like on no crazy scholarship and
Right. So
no,
you weren't raising your hand at every question.
no, I was
And then
not.
you weren't, after class, you weren't going and finding the treatises and ripping the paper
Oh
and going.
God, no, I was definitely not doing that.
That
I
wasn't
was,
Christine Hahn. Okay.
no, I was a class representative though, so I've
That's
always
great. That's cool.
yeah. So
That's
I
cool.
did that. I was more focused on like court experience.
That's great. I think people
Yeah.
need to that's like the one thing that I feel like maybe I just was like trying, like doing too much in terms of like
Mhm.
socially, but like I feel like practical things is what med students get. And like we
Yeah.
don't look enough into like doing something practical, like go to trial ad, like learn how to make an objection, like
Mhm.
learn the rules of evidence and apply them in a trial ad setting. I think like those things are just like not impressive. That should be a mandatory class.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And during my 2L and 3L year, that was my focus because I had, I had a fear of, you're not a lawyer yet, like any other law school student. It's like, oh my God, how do I, present my case in front of the judge? How do I prepare my witness? Or, knowing and practicing the rules of evidence and things like that. So I would take criminal trial clinic courses and different courses deliberately to gain courtroom practice, and
Yeah,
that's what I was focused on. Mm-hmm.
for sure. So okay, so you get through law school, and you're in Detroit. Um, so basically, like, how does a family business and like previous job help you to become like a successful attorney now? And like,
Yeah.
so did you, before we get there, did you work for anybody out of law school?
Like after I graduated, you mean?
Yeah, like after you graduated, did you work for like a small firm, or did you?
I did not.
So you went right on your own.
I did.
So you have an entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes.
Okay, so how long after law school did you start your firm?
Immediately.
Great. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so I come from a family business background, and my dad has been a huge pivotal inspiration, and just really helped me with my career and things like that. So he had a test prep academy in South Korea.
Right.
And I was a SAT instructor. My dad has always been an SAT guru. He brought GED, standardized testing, from the United States to South Korea. He has his own curriculum, his books. It was a big business. So my brother and I ran that business for a very long time.
Awesome.
And yeah, and so ever since I was young, I would see my dad manage all these kids and, with SAT courses, I was forced to sit in and listen when I was like in 8th and 9th grade because it's free. And I'm like studying the SAT already in 8th grade. So definitely reading and writing, comprehension skills, just the way my brain thinks as a lawyer. Now that I think about it today, those courses have been very helpful, watching my dad do those things and, working with different delegating and having different roles as a leader, because my brother and I were running the full business over there. That really, at a very young age, it taught me entrepreneurial skills, problem solving skills, and just to think on your feet and just get it done. It's just my whole family is really business minded.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good, well, you need the business and like the law, you get the law degree and then you can be a solo practitioner. So like, do you remember your first case or like what type of cases you were going for first?
After I was licensed?
After you were licensed and when you opened your own firm?
Yeah, so when I opened my own firm, I was strictly only doing immigration at the time. And now I'm doing family law and criminal defense too. But at the time I was only doing immigration and I love doing it. Again, to me, it's like helping the community, like, so I can eliminate some kind of stress and struggles that I've seen my parents go through, right? So, green card applications, citizenship applications, student visa cases. I remember I was in immigration court defending a client. It was a deportation proceeding. And immigration court is a whole different ballgame, even if you know immigration law. And, this is under Department of Justice. There's different rules. And I was just this baby lawyer. I just shadowed a lot. I would appear just hours and just sit back and everyone would think like, oh, are you next counsel? I'm like, no, I'm just, shadowing. Yeah. So I was nervous. I remember the first case that I tried, a deportation case. I was really nervous, but I've always been a hard worker. I am the hardest worker in the room. No one will outwork me.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt that. So that actually brought me to like a question I just thought of. Like, so you didn't really have a mentor besides the business piece. Like, there was no like legal lawyer mentor.
When I first opened my firm, no, I did not have any mentors. I was my own mentor.
So what does it say about Attorney Han? Confident, knows her stuff, believes in herself. Like that's what people want in an attorney. That's amazing. So let's another question. So you're doing immigration, you're doing family, you're doing criminal. Like, how did you come about selecting those areas?
Yeah. So when I first started practicing immigration law, I knew that this would always be my thing. I'm very passionate about helping immigrants. Again, I come from a family of immigrants, right? So I can relate to their problems and their struggles. And I realized as my business got, bigger, that they need help in a lot of areas, right? And a lot of times I would see, family issues and criminal issues. So family law, criminal defense, and immigration law are not really that far apart. It really is related to each other.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're dealing with people, real people. I don't represent corporations or companies. You're dealing with an immigrant who might be deported if his criminal case is not resolved properly, right? So same thing, I'm doing their divorce, their protection orders, their custody cases. And a lot of times it all is related to, their status, right? So I realized that this was a market for me, number one. I realized I was passionate about it, number two, and I was good at it. With the courtroom experience I've had and I learned in law school, I knew that I was going to be good in court, right? But I'm like, I didn't know if I was going to be like, a personal injury attorney or whatever. But after I started practicing immigration law and after I got, some clients and I realized that they needed particularly my help in these fields, which was family and criminal law.
Wow, that's awesome. So that's amazing. And you bring up law school again. So like, this is sort of off the cuff, but like, did you have like a least favorite part of law school, by the way?
Least favorite part.
Least favorite. If you didn't, like, that's okay. And I've said this on like several of my shows, but I didn't like the Socratic method.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was kind of brutal, but so
Yeah.
okay. So, did you or no? I mean, I have another question.
I did not like the Socratic method.
Oh, okay. All right. So
I think the whole thing of trying to
I didn't put you on the spot like that.
No, it's fine. I think that, professors try to scare you. They try to sometimes make you look stupid and dumb. Right. And the stress and the pressure that's given, especially to 1L students, it does help you think like a lawyer. But practically, when you're in the real world, representing real clients, dealing with real people, there's a lot of skills that are, you have to learn on your own. So I don't personally agree with that method of like, scaring someone, making them feel stupid.
They break you down and then build you back, that sort of thing. So, all right. So I read a little bit about, obviously, your background. Something I've always been interested in, and something that you're doing, that I'm really curious in, is mediation. So like, did you have to go through like a 30-hour a week thing or a 60-hour a week training? And like, what kind of case are you mediating and how has that been for you?
Yeah, so I became a mediator this year. It was a 40-hour course. When COVID hit, I was, thinking, okay, I need to get a lot of things done that I kind of put on the back burner, in the past. And one of that was being a mediator. Yeah. I've actually been in hundreds of mediation myself as counsel, because for family law cases, divorce and custody cases, and I'm really good at settling. So I've had a lot of mediators tell me like, hey, you should become a mediator, so many times. And I'm like, yeah, I should.
So when they say you should become a mediator, does that indicate like you need to get like this 40 hours training certificate? Like as an attorney, aren't we just mediators?
No. So every state is different. But most states are like Colorado in a sense. Like I go to mediation as counsel if I'm on the case, right? So if I'm representing a petitioner in a divorce case, I will go as an attorney. But if I'm a mediator, I'm a third party neutral, right? I don't play the lawyer role as a mediator.
Right.
It's not automatic. It's a different role.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I took the course in law school, and then I took in undergrad, I did like this winter session, like 40-hour program. And then in law school, I took the course too. And so this is just sort of like, now you have this sort of other thing in your pocket that you can pull out and do. And like, what part of law does it help you the most in? What part of your practice?
Family law.
Family. Yeah.
So
that's huge. I mean, do a lot of the cases have to go with the court appointed mediator before they get decided? Is that how it is in Colorado?
Yeah, so before you go to the permanent orders hearing, so before the court will schedule you for trial, you have to attend mediation under the case management order. So it is court ordered. So in my experience, private mediators tend to do a better job than, the alternative dispute resolution assigned by the court. So that's what I do. Okay. When I see clients, a lot of them can't afford an attorney and to litigate for a year or two.
Okay.
Right? They don't have tens and thousands of dollars,
right,
but they still have urgent family issues. So a lot of these things can be resolved if you have a really good mediator.
So you won't necessarily take somebody on as a client. You'll say, hey, I'll just be the impartial mediator for you and the other party that you're against.
Correct. When I'm a mediator, that's what I do.
When you're a mediator, yeah. Mm-hmm. So how has that, and when did you take that course, or when did you become one? Over COVID, you said?
Yes, over COVID. I did it in March.
So in March, okay, and that's like when we featured you. So is that so we might need an updated lawyer story too. So is that and has it been valuable for you? It's been a lot of value. It's provided a lot of value for your practice.
Yes, absolutely. Again, a lot of people need attorneys, but they can't afford attorneys.
Mediation is huge. Mediation's always been big.
And they can afford a mediator a lot of times versus an attorney. So again, like my hourly rate for, when I'm taking on a case as an attorney is significantly different from my hourly rate as a mediator. And, litigation could take, as years, right? But mediation, based on my experience, no matter how high conflict it is, 1 or 2 sessions, That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, and you're facilitating the parties to make their own decision at the end of the day.
Right.
So that's great. Good for you. I mean, you're still like you're trying to do what's best for your practice, and I don't want to call it, say like I don't know if it's like a to use the word hustle, like you're hustling, you're doing a good. Yeah, I mean, it's so that's awesome. I don't know if like hustle is like a slang word. That's the only thing. I don't think it is. Like I use it. So, but good for you. I'm happy that you found another sort of item in your arsenal to help your clients resolve their issues. Mm-hmm. So like, how do you have 3 areas of law and maintain such like a high success rate in everything? I mean, because a lot of people will be a general practitioner, but it seems like you cornered 3 very interrelated parts of law, and you're an expert at all of them, and you're doing very well. So how much does that, how long does that take, and how do you do it?
I think, dedication, commitment. I'm a strong believer. We're all lawyers and we should never stop learning the law or studying. I'm very committed to my cases. I have a monthly cap on my cases. So because I do it myself, that guarantees a high success rate. Most of my cases.
Monthly cap, what does that mean?
Meaning like green card cases, I will not take more than 20 a month. Meaning contested divorce cases involving children or post-decree cases, I will not take more than 20 a month. Criminal defense cases, a lot of the cases I do is crimmigration. So I'm representing immigrants in courts to make sure that their immigration status is protected and they're not deported. I don't take more than 12 a month, right? So I have a cap on a monthly cap. So a lot of my clients seem to appreciate the amount of attention that I give to their cases. Because again, these 3 areas of law, we're dealing with real people here.
Yeah.
And at my firm, they're not treated as just one number. They're real people, and they're dealing with their children, right? They're dealing with their life. Are they going to get deported or not, right? So I really devote a lot of time and attention to each and every one of my cases.
Right. So I have family in the immigration field that I'm going to talk to you about after. But that's great. And one question I have as a follow-up sort of to all of this, and this show is obviously going to go on Spotify, YouTube, it's going to go on Apple Podcasts. So how has social media helped you at all? In terms of being an attorney, have you connected with a lot of people? Do you feel for me, I feel like it's a community. I feel like I see the same people stuff a lot, even if it's 100 people, but I'm like, oh, this person's up to this today. This person's up to that. And I haven't met half these people, but it's really, really interesting. Yeah. So what about in a professional sense? Has it helped?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I want to say social media, it really changes the dynamic or the way you practice law. I feel as not only as an attorney, but as a business owner, as a law firm owner, especially after COVID. Yeah. Right now, everything's done virtually, even with my cases too. And, with Instagram, Facebook, and different social media, for sure, it's a large community. I think, I've become friends with a lot of lawyers all around states, all around the world, and we help each other. I get a lot of referrals too, because immigration is federal law. So 1/3 of my clients are outside of Colorado or outside of the United States. I've never met them in my entire life, but I get a lot of referrals from my followers, right? I get a lot of clients from my followers and things like that. So yeah, social media has been amazing for my business.
It's huge. That's great to hear. What's been the most challenging part of being an entrepreneur?
The most challenging part, I think balance, and switching things up and adapting to the changing, environment. I would say always, you can't ever get comfortable, really.
Yeah.
COVID hit. So, to me, I learned so much, watching my dad and his business. He's a self-made millionaire, he lived that. Yeah. He lived that immigrant story, the American dream. So it's it's in my blood, but also when it's your firm, like this is my baby, right? So it's
What was
like,
that business again with your dad?
it's after school academy, test
That's
prep
right.
academy.
Wow, that's incredible. So he just built that, huh? That's
He
amazing.
did. He did. So I think, adapting to changes quickly. I think it's, for me, balance is number one, because as an attorney, we get caught up on cases, right? Okay, I have to solve this. I have, briefs and motions and deadlines. I have to go to court. But at the same time, if you put too much energy in that, you don't have enough energy to run your business,
Right.
right? You don't have, like, and we're exhausted. Lawyers are always exhausted,
So
right?
how
So
many years have you had your own firm?
6+ years.
Okay, so where do you see yourself in like 5? Like, do you think maybe there'll be a place where you hire some associates and then you become like the social like rainmaker sort of person?
Yeah, so I've had opportunities in the past to hire associate attorneys. It wasn't the right fit for me, so but that's definitely going to happen. So right now it's a no, but definitely in 5 years, yes. I see myself again. My immigration part of the practice is thriving. It's always has been. So I have a lot of clients in Texas, LA, New York, Philly, Atlanta, and things like that. So I envision myself having multiple locations, second and third location, and
Wow. Okay.
yeah, and having associate attorneys for sure.
So on behalf of Lawyer Stories, we would just like to say, like, if there's anybody out there that you see on our platform that you want to connect with, I mean, obviously you could do it yourself, but we will be happy to facilitate any sort of connection with somebody. And we're always happy to help you out, like in any way we can, by promoting Christine Hahn, because I think you do great work. You have a terrific story. I mean, I kind of have this vision of you like in Manhattan, like looking up at the Statue of Liberty, because I personally, like I said, I love the Statue of Liberty. It's like my favorite majestic sort of U.S. like iconic uh,
Yeah,
like structure that I just totally dig. Um, and yeah, I mean, you have an amazing story, so it's
so
great.
much. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. So like, what else about you? Like, what do you like to do? Like on the when you're not, hustling and like and practicing 3 types of laws and running a business and doing all that sort of stuff.
Well, to answer your question, I'm never not hustling, but
We're always hustling. We're always
right,
hustling. I answer questions. I wake up to
right.
messages from people all over the globe wanting to be featured on Lawyer Stories. And
I
if I get up at 2 a.m. to do something, I'll write them back. You know what I mean? Like, so I get it. Like, I know it's a smaller scale, but I when you get that sort of thing that you really like what you're doing,
Mhm.
you're always hustling, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think for me, like I said, I prioritize balance. I see it as a long-term career. I'm not trying to do this for a year or two. Like
Yeah,
see myself doing this for a very long time. So, and I love it. It fits me. I'm good at it. It's fun for me. So, in order for me to be a good attorney, in order for me to be a good businesswoman and an entrepreneur, I really need to take care of myself. So I do prioritize, or I try to do that. Yoga, working out.
good.
Before COVID, I used to travel a lot. So, I was an army brat, so literally all over the world. So traveling has always been big for me.
Okay,
Um, See
okay.
friends, family. The beauty of going to school abroad, when I went to international school in South Korea, many of my friends from back in the day over there in 8th grade live in all over across the globe. So one in London, one in Dubai, one in, Brazil. My friend is working at the US Embassy over there. So I have a lot of friends, like a lot of good network and friends and family all over the world. So that's kind of how I thrive, and that's kind of how I balance myself out.
That's awesome. That's great. So is there anything else that we missed, Christine, that you would want to tell the Lawyer Stories community? We'd be happy to
No, I
entertain any
think
question that I
we
might have
touched
missed.
everything. I'm so excited that I was able to get on this. Thank you so much, Benny.
Awesome. I'm really pumped that we were able to do this. It was short notice. You're
Totally.
very
I love
flexible. I'm sure you're the same way with your clients. They need something, you get back to them. You're very responsive.
right.
So that's huge. So that's like one of the number one things. So I really appreciate you coming on today. How can people get a hold of you?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I said, when you featured me, when I was featured on Lawyer Stories, and ever since then, I think, my story, I like to, inspire people the way, if it's not just law school students, just people who are minorities or people who are struggling to find a path and things like that. So I've got a lot of messages. We talked about social media.
Oh, you did? Good.
Yeah, through my Lawyer Stories, and people who are aspiring to be attorneys and businesswomen literally all over the world. And I think it's a great network. I think to establish a community, I've become a mentor to several students, actually, law school students.
Through Lawyer Stories?
Yes.
That's amazing. Like we need to hear that. We need to see that.
I thought I told you that, but
you
no.
Probably did. You probably did. Tell me again. Like I always want to hear it. Like that's great.
So I try to, you have to give back, and it's not easy to take steps to become an attorney, to have your own practice. And there's a lot of people who could use mentors, I feel like. And
absolutely. I think 100% that's the biggest thing. I think, I'll talk to you maybe some other time about that, but that is the biggest thing right there. I think you hit it on the head. And somebody reaches out and wants to have a mentor and wants to pursue what you're doing and sees you as that person that they want to be someday, like it's flattering, and help them out, So that's terrific. I thank you for doing that and, engaging within the community, and we're always happy to help you. And if there's any way we can, of course. So that's it. So, no, we really appreciate you coming out on short notice. I'm psyched that we got this done. I'm super pumped. And like I like to tell the Lawyer Stories community, wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves.
The Lawyer Stories podcast is produced by Marketing the Law. Are you looking at your social presence every day? Potential clients are. Learn how to magnetize your brand with the help of Marketing the Law. Find us on Instagram at Marketing the Law to learn more.